Thank you. So I want to start from this beautiful image. I think most of you remember this great historical event, the Olympic Games, which happened in the beginning of last year, 2014. And this year, as maybe some of you remember, was declared as the year of the return Russia into history. And in fact, it was a historical year, so this history is still ongoing. And I want to talk about this history and some other history that could be look as the alternative to this beautiful image and to the historical narrative that somehow dominate in our life and our politics and the main message of the state. So I want to remind this Olympic Games, the opening ceremony started from the beautiful performance called the Dreams of Russia. And the main idea of this performance was some kind of trip, a dream trip of a young girl Love, who is traveling from the early years, early centuries of the Russian history towards the glorious situation, historical situation of today. So this idea of the history as a dream, the history which clean up from any kind of ruptures, from any kind of conflicts, from any kind of defeats, that's history is very look like as a dream, as a work of dream, described by Freud in his famous piece on dreams, where he explained that somehow in a dream, the all different elements like fears, desires, hopes, they somehow organized in the picture, in some unique narrative, which resists any kind of ruptures, any kind of contradictions, and even the nightmare is something that Freud described as a signal come inside of our dream to stop this work because nightmare happen exactly in the moment when this dream work come to some contradiction that could be solved inside the dream itself. So basically, if you want to describe what is called politics of history or historical politics that you have for nowadays in Russia, that is definitely can be described as this work of dream. This work that should be somehow interrupted or questioned from outside, from some other memories, some other understandings of history, which come outside of the state machinery, which come from some places, from collective memories, from some unfinished stories of revolutions or defeats of mass movements that systematically clean up from the official history as we now see it. These two different approach to history can be also defined as the what Claude Lévi-Strauss called the hot and cold societies, or hot and cold types of memory. So the cold type of memory is exactly what we have for now. So the type of memory where memory is organized from the top, where memory play some kind of work to disciplinize and organize the society, and memory which lead to with some kind of great wisdom to clean it up from any contradictions and any coming back of unanswered questions that raised in the history before. In opposite, the hot society, the hot memory is something that based on questions rising again and again, which give the opportunity to change the history in any exact moment. So you can say that these two types of history can be defined as the kind of this great return like in Luba dream, where when the present look as the like an organic part of some continuum history of glory, of victories, of some great state which reproduce itself in different epochs. Hot society, hot memory can be defined as a kind of linear history, where we have a kind of historical hope that not should realized. So we have like a goal of the history. We look at the history as an unfinished project, which give for us the place to participate, and that's the main difference. So how this cold history organized by institutions, it's quite clear. For example, so this is the great image of the historical exhibition that taken place this year in Moscow and was dedicated to Rurikovichi dynasty. So it's a part of the big project of this, you can say, turning Russian history into dream. That's another example. That's a previous exhibition on this series, Romanovs. So you see that all these people, all these actors of 3 centuries of Russian history, they're staying together like one team of superheroes, like people who know each other, who meet in one place, and who have definitely one message towards their country. That is exactly what Freud discussed as the Parnassus of poets, which can be created only in the dream, where the poets from different epochs, they meet together, dance, read poetry, despite of the differences in time and in the meaning, in the real history. It's quite important that both of these huge exhibitions curated by the Russian Orthodox Church, historical exhibitions, were organized without any historical artifacts. So there were only pictures, images like this, which repeat again and again the same type of narrative, this cold historical narrative. So my activity as the writer, as the curator, mostly was focused on a couple of projects about how to find some places which can question and which can confront this type of historical politics that we have now in Russia, and even question the concept of historical politics itself. So the first project, which I think was the biggest one in this line, was the project in Moscow Museum Presnya. It's the old Soviet museum established in 20s and then renovated and developed in 70s, which is dedicated to the First Russian Revolution, the revolution of 1905, and especially on such an important event of this revolution as Moscow December uprising. So this museum itself played like a very strange, very controversial role in the current post-Soviet situation. Basically because it's a museum of uprising. It's a museum of revolt of workers against government, against Romanovs, against police, and the narrative of revolt is kind of dominant in this in this museum, which can be hid somehow and replaced by something principally different. So this museum for all the post-Soviet years was existed like a sleeping place of the contradiction, which was not reflected by the people who work there, because they also were, you know, in some way sleeping, not thinking too much about the message of their museum, and pretend to play some role in the normalization of history in the framework of this dream, where not only all Romanovs but also pre-Soviet Russia and Soviet Russia peacefully coexist in one historical Parnassus of the Russian history. So in 2012, me and Arseniy Zhilev, Moscow artist, we started. We started big project in this museum called Pedagogical Poem. This was project which existed in some kind of between the contemporary art, theory of history, and the museum studies. So it was a kind of very complicated interdisciplinary project, which continued during more than half a year, with the lectures, with the reading groups, seminars, exhibitions. This project, in fact, built a kind of the community around it, So to the end of this project, we were not just two people who lead it, but it was the community of very different people who actively participated and in the development of this project and decision-making process. In the end of this project, we produced this book, which is, I will give for everyone to have a look on it. So this book was published in Russian and in English. So and the Russian edition look exactly the same as the English one. This is a collection of essays and texts which try from the very different sides, from the sides of like academic history, from the side of art history, from the side of philosophy and critical theory, from the side of the art praxis, try to rethink this place, this place of memory and the challenge that come out of this place. So to the end of this project, I was asked by the local director of this museum to join the museum team, not just as the curator, but as the permanent scientific assistant of the museum. And then I had really a great experience of work for 1 year during all 2013 in this museum, try somehow to develop this approach and to push it to I say honestly to a real conflict which was hidden inside this museum and which was hidden in this very strange, controversial place of such a state institution as a museum of the revolution, which pretend to be normalized in the framework of the current state historical politics. So during this year, I tried to organize different type of activities from different sides, trying to problematize this place and politicize this place, because the politics in this place is exactly there. So you can't imagine something more radical that the essence of this museum. So you just need to, to open it, to talk about it, to discuss, and to organize debate, not just with historians or artists, but also with the people, with the regular people who are visiting this museum and who are interested in what is the real meaning of this museum, of the brutal workers' uprising against the police and the state in the very center of Moscow, as a part of the Museum of Contemporary History of Russia, which so it's a much bigger museum, and that exact museum is just one branch of this big museum. So the whole big museum in the Soviet time was called the Central Museum for Revolution, and now it's a museum for contemporary history of Russia. My experience was successful because it finally ended with a big scandal, and I was kicked out from this museum. And it happened because we, together with a group of Moscow artists, we organized an exhibition dedicated to the 20th anniversary of Moscow events of 1993. You know that it was important moment, I will say the crucial moment in the post-Soviet history when Russian parliament was dissolved by president. It was bombed by artillery and on the ashes of this Russian parliament the new constitution was adopted. And this historical moment was the true moment of birth of the current Russian state. Not the Romanovs dynasty, not victory in the Second World War, but this victory of the super presidential power under the parliament 20 years ago. And all these events happened exactly in the same area where the Moscow uprising of December 1905 was happening. So we organized this exhibition together with six or seven Moscow artists. All of them tried to reflect their own experience, their own view on these events and generally on the social and political catastrophe of Russian 90s. After a week, that exhibition was opened. The head of museum, this big museum for contemporary Russian history, declared that it should be closed for some unclear, very formal reasons. And immediately we start a kind of open campaign which tried to push him and to push the authorities of the museum for some kind of, explanation of their position. So what exact political or aesthetical disagreements this exhibition has with their views how the history should be should appear in the such exhibitions. During this scandal, I was fired because of also some formal reasons, but during this story, which prolonged for 2 weeks, some explanations from other side appeared, and the explanations were more or less political. So these explanations, created a space for the discussion, for the real discussion on post-Soviet history that is so needed in our current situation. Yeah, and that is the beautiful graffiti made by Moscow artist Misha Most, and that was not the official part of the exhibition because it was created in a wall in front of the museum. It was a big wall, it was empty, and during one night before the opening of the exhibition, he made this graffiti, which is still there, which is a bit strange, but for 2 years is still there. So I have some 5 minutes. Two. Okay. So very briefly about other type of activity, which is, I will say, less institutional and more activist. So it also happened 2 years ago, around the Yeah, around the case of so-called Stella of Freedom in the Alexandrovsky garden in the very center of Moscow, near Kremlin. It was a monument which appeared in 1918, so in the very beginning of the Soviet Russia, and it appeared as one of the first artifacts of the Soviet monumental propaganda, where the narrative of this propaganda was not yet clarified. And which was in that time still open for the interpretation. So on the stela there were names of the revolutionary thinkers, and the list of these thinkers was very strange and very untypical for the more late and more well-organized Soviet time of propaganda. So there were names not just Marx, Engels, but also people like Proudhon, Bakunin, Mikhailovsky, one of the leaders, ideologists of the Russian Narodniks movement, or some very strange figures like Campanella, the utopian socialist, utopian communist, or Saint-Simon and Fourier, the French utopian socialists of the beginning of 19th century. So, and this stela was there in place even most of the post-Soviet era. And honestly, every time when I passed by this stela, I was asking myself why it's still here, so why it's not already removed. So exactly 2 years ago, the time was come, and this stela was destroyed, and the plan was to replace it by the other stela dedicated to Romanov's dynasty. So to replace all these names by the names of the Romanov's rulers for 300 years. So in the moment when this stela was removed and the new stela was not established yet, a group of activists, and I was a part of this group, organized regular public lectures dedicated to all the people who were mentioned in on this stela. So there were lectures on Bakunin, on Marx, on Saint-Simon, on Fourier. So all these figures were commented and discussed. And in the same time, it was an open protest against the destruction of this stela. So I also have something else to say, but I know that I have not more
Maybe
time.
there will be some questions.
Yes, yes. So it's just two examples how this dream can be interrupted, or even how we can try to interrupt it, and how we can question from below this dominant view of history. Thank you.